whether it's a husband or a wife, but as a community, how do we learn from the Seerah of Rasulullah? We learn a lot from the Seerah of Rasulullah. We learn how the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam came to a society that was fragmented, a society that was in war between each other, and they came together as one unit. Not only that, but they carried the message as one man to the rest of the world. It is very important to understand these lessons from the community of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And the main thing that I talked about before is how did they succeed in attaining this success? We were able, as a Muslim Ummah, we were able to attain a successful community. As I said, it's a community that led the world for hundreds of years. It didn't start from nothing. It started from a model. A model that was actually put for us by Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam under the guidance of Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. This is the ideal community that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam built. But Allah Azza wa Jal has a rule, a universal rule that, as it was mentioned in many books, the universal rule, it says one of these universal rules, if communities or nations follow these rules or live in harmony with these rules, they will rise. If they break these rules of Allah Azza wa Jal, they will fall. And you will see it with the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, where the Sahaba lived in harmony with the rules of Allah Azza wa Jal, the universal laws of Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. They rose in a 50 years time. Actually, it was unprecedented for a community to raise to the top in 50 years, to build the civilization in 50 years, to go east and west and north and south in 50 years. But the secret was not because they were courageous, which is true. It's not because they were the most knowledgeable, which is true. Knowledgeable of Allah Azza wa Jal, the knowledge that Allah Azza wa Jal wants them to know. But because they followed these rules. And I mentioned before some of the rules. And the main one is, one of the verses actually I mentioned is وَالَّذِينَ إِن مَكَّنَّاهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ أَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتَوُا الزَّكَاةَ وَأَمَرُوا بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَنَهَوْا عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ وَلِلَّهِ عَاقِبَةُ الْأُمُورِ. And this verse is talking about those who, when they were established on earth, مكناهم, they have the tamkeen on this earth, at any level. Whether it's the level of a family, whether it's the level of an individual, or a family, or a community, or a nation, or an ummah as a whole. When they are given this tamkeen, which is mentioned in the ayah that I mentioned last time, which is talking about Allah Azza wa Jal, and is talking about طاعة وأطيعوا قل أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول فإن تولوا فإنما عليه ما حمل وعليكم ما حملتم وإن تطيعوه تهتدوا وما على الرسول إلا البلاغ. This is what Allah Azza wa Jal talking basically about the obedience of whom? Of Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala and of His messengers. And it tells us all guidance is in this recipe of following Allah Azza wa Jal and His Rasul, which is the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. And then when we follow this rule and we come to the establishment, what do we do after that? Do we fight with each other? What do we do? أقاموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة وأمروا بالمعروف ونهوا عن المنكر ولله عاقبة الأمور. It's indeed, when you look at these ayat, it's very interesting. Allah Azza wa Jalla is talking about the tamkeen on this earth. But in the end of the surah, on the end of the verse, is telling us about the other truth, which is وَلِلَّهِ عَاقِبَةُ الْأُمُورِ. Yes, establish yourself in this dunya. Establish your community. And this is how you build it, establish it on these pillars. As-salatu wal-zakatu wal-amru bil-ma'ruf wal-nahy 'anil munkar. But you need to put in your mind, you establish this community on these pillars of iqam, performing salat and giving the charity and enjoining good and forbidding evil. But at the end, even though with whatever establishment you reach in this dunya, وَلِلَّهِ عَاقِبَةُ الْأُمُورِ. And then we all go back to Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. So when we work with each other as a community, when we deal with each other as a community, yes, we might have difference of opinions. Yes, we might differ with each other. Yes, I might see it this way and you might see it the other way. But we were all working for the sake of the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, or establishment of the deen of Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. But I also need to put in between my eyes another truth. وَلِلَّهِ عَاقِبَةُ. That me and you, whatever, we are going to back to Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala. And my brothers and sisters, if we do want to repeat the success of the Sahaba, we have to follow them. We have to follow them, meaning following Rasulullah. They were nothing but the students of Rasulullah. Follow them and follow how they build this community. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, I know we're jumping ahead, but is when the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he migrated to Medina, realizing the importance of the unity in the community, he actually has done three things, major things, upon the arrival. Upon the arrival and before even establish his own house or his own, when you go somewhere. Usually when we migrate anywhere today, what do we look for first? Well, some of us will look for the masjid because they have nowhere to go, right? First immigrant, there's good in the heart. First thing we look for, I need the masjid. Which is good. That's something that's a sign of if there is a seed inside, regardless of the past. But there's that seed of iman that directly towards the masjid is better than to go somewhere else. But after that, what we do? We don't look for the masjid to build it, or no, we look for it's of our own interest, right? But after that, we start looking for a job, we start looking for a house, our own selves. But look at the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this actually teaches us as a community, it's not about me. It's not about me. It's not about you as individuals. It's about a community. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, first thing, he built the house of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Al-Masjid. Second, which is very important. Why? What is it? What good does it do if you have a masjid, but the bond between the musalli, those who are the worshippers, or those, it's not there. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam understood this too. So there should be something else that comes with building the physical, the binaya, the masjid itself. It's to build the community through the bond of brotherhood that history never seen before, where you will inherit me and I will inherit you without any blood ties. And that's how, subhanAllah, you look at it this way. Third act that he did in the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is the pact of Medina, Wathiqat al-Medina. The pact of Medina that does actually to organize the life of the people, these new societies. Not just the Muslim community, this new society has to be organized somehow. There should be yes and no, there should be done, do and don't. It's not just left, Wallahi Rasulullah in Medina, and we can do whatever we want. The Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam from that, we're talking about the first days of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam coming to, and this should tell us something. That should tell us something that the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and when we look at the masjid of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was not always that fancy, big. No, it wasn't. But it got there somehow through the history. But it was just a simple place where people gathered, where people would worship, where people would consult, where people would be consulting with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with each other, where people would love one another, where people would find the peace with one another in the masjid. If you will not find the peace in the masjid, you will not find it anywhere else. What else do we expect myself to find peace? If I will find it in the house of Allah Azza wa Jalla. خَيْرُ الْبِضَاعِ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ. The best place on earth is the house of Allah Azza wa Jalla. If I'm not going to find the peace in the house of Allah Azza wa Jalla, where else do you want me to go? What else? So this is very important that the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, besides building the masjid, he built, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, those bonds and ties between the Sahaba, ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhi. Again, going to my point, my brothers, it's not impossible to repeat the experience of the Sahaba, ridwanullahi ta'ala. It's not. It's not impossible. And we can do it by just going back and following and looking at what they have done. Look at what I have done, and we'll do it and repeat it. And we need to know that Allah Azza wa Jalla also told us in the Quran, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. The Sahaba radwanullahi ta'ala alayhim, they changed their state from within, and then the state, the outward of their state changed too. They changed from within. And look at the Sahaba, how they implemented the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you read the Seerah of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, or the biography of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. My brothers and sisters in Islam, throughout this series of lectures, I'm hoping that even if you are a dedicated person to the deen of Allah, especially in this area, I believe that this is one of the fertile areas in the da'wah of Allah, especially in Boulder. You're in the middle of a town, a college town, where you have a lot of students from all over the states, from all over the world actually. And when we talk about non-Muslims, they will come and they will ask, and they want to know the truth. They want to know, what is this Islam? They don't listen to just O'Reilly and Fox News and Sean Hannity and so on and so forth, but they want to know more. They want to see Islam through the eyes of Muslims. What is Islam? And especially in this area. And if you are one of those people who dedicate a portion of his time to the da'wah of Allah, for the da'wah, or to deal with, to give or call people to Allah Azza wa Jal, the only way to do it properly is through knowing the Seerah of Rasulullah, because he is the first da'i for this deen. He is the one who called people. And he called people worse than the people who are called today. He called Quraysh, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا قُرَيْشْ at the time. And we know what Quraysh did to him, Rasulullah. And Nabi Sallallahu through his Seerah, and if you're a da'i, if you're giving the da'wah to others, you know how Rasulullah dealt with Abu Jahl, how he dealt with Ubay ibn Khalaf, how he dealt with all of these Qurayshis, how he dealt with them. How he sat down with them and talked to them and gave them da'wah, and how he actually replied to them. Wallahi, one of the interesting parts I remember from the Seerah is that the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was sitting with one of the leaders of Quraysh. Leaders of Quraysh. And this leader, he's coming to him and he's telling him, what do you want? You want this? We'll give it to you. You want this? But just stop. Stop calling for the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. And then when he's done, he told him, أنتهيت يا أبا الوليد. And he's using the kunya. Are you done, Ya Abu al-Walid? And he's Utbah, one of the leaders of Quraysh, who is actually one of the most fierce enemies of Islam. But the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did not lose the respect for that individual when he's dialoguing with him and talking to him. When he's telling him, Ya Abu al-Walid, come on, he's the enemy. Tell him, Ya Utbah, maybe it's too much for him, if we are day to day. But he's using that shows that the khuluq of a da'iyah, that the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is talking to one, and he didn't believe. And he went to him and he didn't believe yet, but the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam kept that standard of the Muslim, of the da'iyah that you use. If you are, for example, an educator, you are teaching people in the masjid, outside of the masjid, in your home, who is the best teacher than Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? There are actually books telling us the methodology of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in correcting others' mistakes. The methodology of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in da'wah. Books, these are books. And the methodology of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in teaching. He was a teacher, the great teacher that mankind have seen. But that great teacher, he taught students, Sahaba Radwanullah Ta'ala alayhim. Where did he teach them? Were they graduate of Harvard or Princeton or Oxford or Sorbonne or whatever? They were the graduate of Dar al-Arqam ibn al-Arqam, the smallest place in Mecca. It's a small house. It's not about where you graduate from. It's not what degree you have. It's, are you able to deliver the message? Are you able to communicate with others and teach them? That's what Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we learn from the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And the Sahaba Radwanullah Ta'ala alayhim, in their turn, they didn't just keep it to them. They actually built a civilization with that. They laid the foundation for a civilization. When we talk about the golden age of Al-Abbasiyin, Al-Abbasiyin did not start from zero, from scratch. Harun al-Rashid, when he stands out and talks to the cloud and tells the cloud, you rain whatever you want. Kharajuki a'idun layl. The dues of zakat will come back to me, to Dar al-Khilaf in Baghdad. He just go to sleep and the next morning Al-Abbasiyin are ruling the whole world. The foundation were laid by the Sahaba Ridwanullahi Ta'ala alayhim. If you are a leader, and this is very important for my brothers and sisters who are in a position of leadership. Look at the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, how did he lead? Through the Seerah, you will see how Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was the greatest leader. How Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his main concern was the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. His life revolved around the deen, right? Da'wah, risala, of message. But at the same time, he was also concerned with the people that are surrounding him. When he deals with people, you will be amazed. You will read probably all of the books of leadership that they were written after today. This guy, John Maxwell, Levy, whatever, just read the books. But you will not, actually, they will not suffice you, will not be a substitute to the leadership of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How he dealt with the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he dealt with Abu Jahl in a certain way. He dealt with Kafir. He dealt with Abdullah ibn Ubay Salul, Raqs al-Nifaq in a way. He dealt with Abu Bakr and Umar and Hamza. He didn't deal just with Hamza and Abu Bakr and Umar. He didn't deal with all just those who are actually just saying, agreeing with him. We know from the Seerah that there are people who did not agree with the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam in, not in the dunya stuff, in the war or something, and they came and gave him the advice, and how he dealt with them, and how he took the advice, and how he took and how he implemented it. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So if you are in leadership, the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was or had the softest heart. When you're in a leadership, don't have the toughest heart. Be like Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Be soft with the others. Be soft with those who are following you are following in the masjid or the congregation. Be soft with them. Yes, we tell them what's right. Yes, we tell them the truth. Yes, we enjoin good. Yes, we forbid evil. But بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة. And that's Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, unless really there is the limits of Allah Azza wa Jalla that are transgressed in a way that it's unacceptable, he would never get angry. You will see it in the seerah of a Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you are a spouse, whether you are a mother, a husband or a wife, look at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And one of the things that touched me the most when I deal with the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Safiya, Ummuna Safiya bint Huyay ibn Akhtab, when he got married to her, when he married her بعد Khaybar, and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam actually one day she wanted to get on the camel. When I read this, I said, man, subhanAllah, where are we from the akhlaq of the character of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam actually put his knees down for her, it's like this. So she can put her feet or her foot on him, on his knee to climb on the camel. And this is who? This is a Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Dealing with who? His wife. Then maybe today we think that our wives or the sisters are just, forget it. No, see, look at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I was like, wow, this is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam giving his wife, not somebody else, his wife. And actually Safiya was also polite with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She didn't put her foot on his knee, she put her knee on his knee and she climbed. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam and radiyallahu anha. And this is, subhanAllah, this is what you are. When you are the wife, you also need to learn from the wives of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How they dealt with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How did they receive Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he came home? Maybe he has a problem. Salama, great example. In Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam coming inside and he was so, the heart is filled with sadness. Why? Because he told the Sahaba to shave and slaughter and none of the Sahaba moved. And he went inside to Salama in her tent and he complained to her. He told her, she asked what's going on and he told her, this is what? She said, Ya Rasulullah, all you have to do, go out and do it and they will all follow. This is what we want as role models for our wives and sisters and mothers and so on and so forth. Be Salama, Aisha, Khadija. Khadija when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came with the Ghar Hira with the burden of al-Wahi and he didn't know what's in it. How did she receive him? How did she comfort him? How did she? She said, Wallahi lam yukhzik Allah. Oh, I swear by Allah, Allah will not disappoint you. It's nothing. It's not harmful. And this is what we are for the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam talking about. And if you are a parent dealing with your children, Look at the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, how he dealt with Fatima. Fatima comes and the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam stands up and tells her, come and sit here and put the burda for her. Fatima, his daughter. How he dealt with Al-Hassan and Hussein, the grandkids of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. How Al-Hassan and Hussein, in some narrations, that he was prostrating the sujood and they are playing on his neck and he will let them play until they finish. How many of us do that today? Probably the kids are scared to just come close to us when we're praying. Right? Because you might just slap him in the face, he's going to hit the wall. But that's not Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and subhanAllah, and my point is that the seerah, if you are, for example, an individual, a Muslim, and you're going through a difficult time, financial, health, whatever difficult, we'll go through difficult times and we have ups and downs in our life. And when we look at Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who went through more difficult time than Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? None. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is al-Sadiq al-Ameen in his people. Once he came to the message, they started actually chasing him out. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, from the noble family of Quraysh, he has to go to the Hajj, the pilgrims, and just try to say, come on, embrace Islam and take me with you. This is Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Many would think that health, wealth, difficult. There's nothing more difficult than you are being chased or driven away from your home. Nothing more difficult. And he did it, Rasulullah. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam went through the migration from Mecca to Medina for a reason, through difficult times. Because some people will say, Allah Azza wa Jalla supported him in Al-Isra and Al-Mi'raj. Between Mecca and Al-Aqsa. He did it in a miraculous way. And the same Allah Azza wa Jalla who made him able to travel in a miraculous way from Mecca to Medina is the same one who told him to migrate from Mecca to Medina walking and through the difficulties. So when you go through all these difficulties, you should remember Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You lost a child, and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam lost his son Ibrahim when he was young, and he's burying him with his own hands. And he was saying that there is sorrow in the heart. And the eye might shed tears, but who will not see but what pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the seerah. This is what I'm talking about. This is what we learn from the seerah of a Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It's not about just me coming here and telling you a story, which is a lovely story, which is a beautiful story of a Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Just by itself, I love it to read it and say it many, many times, just by itself. But the main purpose is that we derive lessons from it. That we become a Muslim who thinks about Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam at all time. When I am in a position, in any circumstance, the first thing that should come to mind is not, will my father allow it or not? Will my mother be okay with it or not? I should say, how would Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam deal with the situation? Because he is the role model. He is the example. He is the one that we need to follow, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And wallahi, if we start thinking like this, that what Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Islam will come back to our life. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is nothing but كان قرآن يمشي على الأرض. Aisha was asked about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, about the khuluq, the character of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. She said, كان خلقه القرآن. The character and the moral, you want to understand the Quran? Look at the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. You want to be a good father? Be like Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. You want to be a good teacher? Be like Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. You want to be a good leader? Be like Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Of course, you're not going to be able to imitate everything, but as much as you can. As much as we can. We take pieces and we're not computers. Because it tends to be, in an area like this, we're not computers. We do not touch buttons and the whole life change. It's a process. It's a training. First of all, it comes with a thought. I start thinking like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What is it good if I dress like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam but think like Abu Jahl? No good. I need to be thinking like Rasulullah and dressed like Rasulullah and behaving like Rasulullah. That's the Muslim. In all manners, in all aspects of life. Going from this importance, this side of the importance of the seerah, of studying the seerah of Rasulullah, I'll take you to another aspect of the importance. This masjid, mashallah, it's a big place, right? Are you happy with it?
Alhamdulillah.
Huh? You like it, huh?
Alhamdulillah.
If someone comes from anywhere, somewhere, a visitor, and he comes here and he prays Jumu'ah and sees you happy and what's wrong with you guys? It's just a masjid. It's just a big place. It's a masjid. We have a masjid everywhere like this. Better and bigger. Why does he say that? Because he does not know where he's coming from. The point is, if he lived with you in that small masjid and he struggled with you and there's all the difficulties and this and that, when he see the transformation, he will be pleased and he will say, MashaAllah, Alhamdulillah, this is good. Same with Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. To understand the magnitude of the positive change that he brought to the mankind, you have to go back in history or in time to look at how was the state of the world before Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And that is my other area. The world before Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, at all aspects, politics, social, and religious, how was it? Let's take it one at a time. And the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, or most of the biographers of the Seerah, of the writers of the Seerah, would not start from, because when I say, okay, the Seerah, the life of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, maybe what comes to your mind, especially if you're not familiar with this, well, we're going to start with, اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق, and go forward. That's why he started there, and then Muhammad before that was just another human being living in Quraysh. But after that, the Wahy came. But the biographers do not start from there. None of them. Unless they have a reason for that. Most of them actually start back from before the birth of Rasulullah. Forget that alone, al-Wahy. Before the birth of Rasulullah. And the reason for that is, as I said, in order for us to understand what Islam did to the world, we have to look at what was the state of the world before Islam. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam described this state in a hadith. Hadith is a long hadith, but part of it, which is the last part of it, says, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, verily Allah looked at the inhabitant of earth. Allah Azza wa Jal looked at the inhabitant of earth and despised them all. إن الله نظر إلى هذه الأرض فمقته جميعا. Despised them all, except some remnants of أهل الكتاب, the people of the book, except إلا بقايا من أهل الكتاب. This hadith is very straightforward. Allah Azza wa Jal, the creator of the earth and the universe, despised all the people of the land, of the earth, except a few people who are still sticking to a tawheed. Why? Why would Allah Azza wa Jal despise the inhabitant of earth? They must have done something big wrong to deserve the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, they did. And let's look at what they did. And at that time, before Rasulullah, which we're talking about the 6th century, before the 6th century, before Islam, before Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was even born, there was 2 or 3 main forces in the earth. There was the Romans, and the Persian, and there was the Indian subcontinent by itself. Even though they were not a superpower or anything, but we will talk about it. And there was the Arabs, where Islam was. So this is the earth. Romans, who are ruling most of Asia, ruling most of Sham, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, North Africa, and some of the Europe, and this is the Eastern Empire of the Romans, Byzantium, Byzantine Empire, and Europa al-Gharbiyya, which is, but they are almost going through the same thing. In the Europeans, the Romans at that time, they were ruled by rulers, kings, the emperors of the Romans. But they have one strategy in the strategy of the kingdom is actually to move forward and occupy lands. From Constantinople, they moved all around the world and they got to North Africa, Egypt, Algeria, Morocco, Asia, Sham, everything almost was under their rules. And they actually exposed people to oppression. You cannot rule people, occupation basically. They were occupying people's land with military force and exposing them to high taxes. That's all they have done. To a point in the history that tells you that there are people, the parents in Sham, Syria in particular, or Sham, there are parents in the Sham, they are so much in debt that they had to sell their children to pay the debt to the government. Imagine a parent taking his own son or daughter or whatever to the market and selling them as a slave so they can pay the debt. Imagine the relationship that existed between the rulers and the subject of the state at the time. Is nothing but oppression. It is nothing but transgression. That's it. That's all they know. If you are up there, you're okay. But if you're down here, you're in trouble. That's all done. And this, in the Roman, there was two contradictions that were actually spread among the Romans at the time. In one hand, you will find the land is full of monasteries, monks, everywhere. And actually these taxes and these high taxes and these, so people get tired of it. Probably the best way for me is not to have a family and establish a family and have kids and then at the end I'll sell them to pay the debt. I'll just go to a monastery. I'll be a monk and that's it, we're done. This was really spread out. Monasteries all over the land of the Romans. But on the other hand, they were very preoccupied with frivolous kind of sports. You know the sports of the gladiators, who were actually people they built arenas, big arenas. You have 80,000 people sitting there watching what? Watching a man killing another. It's a fight. Or an animal, a savage animal, killing a man, or a man killing this savage animal. That's the sports that they had at the time. And this was supposed to be the developed nation, civilized nation. Well, I'm wondering what's going on with the non-developed nations. So it must be something else. So, and this is the most civilized land, and see what's going on with it. You go to, on the other hand, onto let's forget about, for example, women. We're talking about today inheritance of women. Women cannot inherit, women cannot own a property, and we name it. They cannot do anything. And the children are sold, and just name the mischief that existed on that time, in that part of the earth. And on the other part of the earth, going east, which is the Persian Empire, which was stronger empire than the Roman one, but they have the common thing, which is injustice, oppression. Their kings, they believe that they are descendants, or they have the blood of God or something circulating in their veins. They're not like everybody else. If you are part of the monarchy kingdom or monarchy family, you're not the same as the rest of the world. You're not the same as the others. And therefore, everything that is on the land is yours. It's the privilege of God given to you. Everything that moves on the earth is yours. They like it, they don't like it, this is their problem. Property, women, men, you are all mine. And that actually led this to this kind of life where you have a monarchy and the subject of the monarchy, and they can do whatever to their subjects. And also they have the same thing as which is taxes. Taxes were very, very high. And people actually, again, subhanAllah, when the human being is oppressed by the other human being, he leaves this earth to the oppressor. He said, "Khas, the dunya, I'm going to leave it for you. I'm going to go to the monastery and be a monk." And they do this. But at the same time, those who fight, those who are in war, are not the emperors of the Roman and the emperors of the Persians. They are the state, the regular people. And they're taken in wars, and they fight wars, and they die for the sake of who? For the sake of his monarch, to be living a luxurious life and owning everything. So the life in Persia is no different than the life in the Roman Empire. And all of this happened because of one thing, is that everyone in these kind of lands, they left the divine law behind their back. They just throw in the divine law and they adopted or adhered to the man-made law. And that's what the man-made law do. Man-made law do nothing but injustice, oppression, and transgression. There's no doubt. There should be no doubt in the mind of the human being. And they might seem temporarily that there's justice and whatever, but it's going down the road, it's going to lead to this. And we'll actually, towards the end, I will give you some comparison between the 6th century and the 21st century. The 6th century and the 21st century. Go into India. India was actually probably the worst. India, and I think there's some experts here that can correct me about India. In the India in the 6th century, actually they had what they called the sacred law of the Hindu society. Mana Sharta, or something like that. And this actually divided the society into 4 classes. Brahmins, Kshatriya, Vaisya, and Sudras. This is the first 4 classes. Brahmins, who are actually the priests and the scholars, and this is the class. And then you have this Kshatriya, who are the warriors and the rulers, and you have the Vaisya, which is the merchant and the farmers, and then you have the Sudras, who are the servants and the laborers. The problem is not in the classification, because until now I didn't say anything wrong. I didn't say anything about this. Because it's really, in any society, you will find the rulers and the scholars and the laborer, but the problem is in interacting with each other. Because this rule that was there, it tells you how do we act with each other. How do the Brahmanas deal with the Sudras? Are they allowed to? They're not even allowed to sit with one another. My status is here, and your status is here. You can't. Why is that? Well, because it says that the Lord, in their divine, so-called divine, their law, their sacred law, it says that the Lord created Brahman from his mouth, Kshatriyas from his arm, Vaisya from his thigh, and Sudras from his feet, so that the world may prosper. This is what they believe. I'm a Brahman, I'm created from the top, you're created from the bottom. What's your problem? How can you deal with it? How can you come to me? Not only that, but it says also, anyone who is born Brahman, you have to be born. You're not going to just seek the knowledge and become a scholar and say, hey, I'm no more Sudras. I'm the Brahman. You can't. Born Brahmins, who actually is the noblest creature on the earth. And he is the monarch of all creatures. This is his duty, and the Sudras, his duty is to defend the Shatra. So they have the law. These Brahmins are the best, and they are the monarch of the world, and they have to defend the Shatra. But who's going to do the defense? You're going to execute? Give commands. Who's going to execute? That says, nothing can be more honorable for a Sudra, which is the lowest class, than to serve the Brahman. It's his law, their law. It says nothing is more honorable in the honor then for a Sudra to serve the Brahman. Nothing besides this can earn him any reward. Khalas. You want to be good? Go serve your master, the Brahman. And this divide and this, and I don't know how you look at it. Imagine that today you come to the United States and tell them, "Allah, we need to divide this class and this and this and this." They say, "Come on, hold it." And my understanding, they still exist until today, this classification. Besides the Muslims, but in the Hindu society, they still have this classification today. But imagine it in the 6th century. Today the world is open to everything. And people are looking and talking and but imagine in the 6th century. The 6th century, the historians of India will tell you it was its own world, separated. In the book of Seerah of Nadawi actually talks a lot about it. And it said that it was just an isolated world by itself. No connection with the rest of the world. Disconnected. They just follow these laws and that's it. And nobody care about what they do. At the religious level, you will see that the Romans were most of them actually Christian. But even Christianity itself, from the 4th century, started from the beginning. They started the deviation. But at the 4th century, really became the deviant, non-monotheistic religion. With the Tathrith, the Trinity, and so on and so forth. And they actually took that route all the way down to today. And also the Jewish, some of the historians of the Judaism, they'll tell you, okay, they were actually more adopting to polytheism than anything else. Khurafat, myths, and so on and so forth. So, and the Hindu, or the Persian, we know the Persian, they were worshipping, according to some historians, they were worshipping many gods. But at the end, they said, okay, too many gods is not good. Let's divide them two. God of good and God of bad. God of light and God of darkness. And that's it. We'll just put two categories. And the rest is subcategories of these gods. And they would make sure that the water would not touch the fire. Water will not touch the fire. Actually, the main objective, and that's all they were doing. And if you want to know more of this, you talk about the life of Sayyidina Salman al-Farisi. In it, you will see more of this. And if you go to India, I have more than a quote from the specialists in this area. There's some books that were written, but most of them actually agree that the religion that was in India, whether it's the Buddhism or the Brahman religion, was all polytheistic. There's nothing called worshipping one God in that area. Actually, to a point that almost everything that moves it becomes a god. And this is not my word. This is some of the. This is, it said, Dr. Gustav, who wrote the Civilization of the Men, of India. He said, the Hindu of all people stands not unavoidably in the need of visible objects for religious worship. And anything that moves in the people good, that's worship. And this is the chaos at the world at the time. Has any questions? Yes, sir.
What about the Chinese civilization?
No, they were considered in the East, but they're all none of them worshipped the monotheistic God. It looks like, from what I have read, they were not really in the. It looks like no, they were there. Of course, they were there, but they were the same situation as the others.
What was the question? Can you repeat the question?
The question is, was there a Chinese civilization as well?
As
well as Roman and Persian,
There was.
Some people think that there was only two superpowers, and there was no Chinese, and they were so weak back then.
We're talking the Qutbiyya, the bipolar world. It's always existed as a bipolar world, most of the time. Chinese, if they were a superpower at the time, they were not really in the superpower arena. I took note of your question. I'll check the Chinese in the 6th century. Inshallah, I will check what's going on with the Chinese in the 6th century. But the bottom line is, these are the very close empires that were surrounding the Arabian Peninsula, very close to it. Whether it's the empire, the Persian, not only that, but also when you look at the state of Islam later on, most of the lands that were taken by these two empires came back to the owners of the land, and Islam spread in those areas. So they're very, very close to it, and we'll see the change where these areas were mainly impacted by the religion of Islam. Now we go really in the heart of which is the Arabs. How were the Arabs living in that time? Well, is it Romans on this side, they were in chaos. Persians in this area, they were in chaos. Now the Arab in the middle of where Allah Azza wa Jalla has chosen this land or this place to send His Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. First of all, the Arabs at the time were people who had the tribal laws. Is the law that would dictate how we live our life. That's the main rule. They didn't have a state. They were not a country. They were not a dawla like the Persians or the Romans. They were just Bedouins living in with their livestock in the desert, and they have the tribe, and they have the leader of the tribe, and whatever the leader of the tribe says, it goes. If the leader of the tribe is the person who is the most noble of them, who is actually obeyed by the rest of the people, and he has members of the families that support his leadership. And not only that, he was actually the one who would sign treaties of war or peace. And we'll talk about the war and peace among the Arabs. So this is the Arab life. Arab were not like what you see today, and even after the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when they become united and in power and started going left and south and north and east and west. They were just tribes. Tribes living in the middle of nowhere and actually in a constant fight with each other. In a constant, and I'll tell you some examples why the Arabs, actually, some of the tribes got into a fight with each other. You will say, man, what is this? And we'll talk about some of this, and also the tribe men at the time. And these are very important to understand. How did people like this turn to be like Umar al-Khattab, and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and Uthman, and how did it happen? If they were living in this environment, and they were living in this environment with this mentality, how did it happen? It happened because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they understood the Quran, they understood this deen. Every tribeman actually was fighting, he was fighting for his tribe. The honor of that tribe is the honor of that individual. He will die for it, he will live for it, that's it. If there is a fight, regardless of what's in stake. And also in the economy-wise, Arabs, they're not an industrialized nation. Not even agriculture in some areas, like Mecca. But they were actually one of the best traders in the world. Trade. Their business is, they are businessmen. All they do is business. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about this when He said, when He talks about the two caravans of Quraysh that go south and north in the winter, and that's all they knew. Anything else, just forget it. And that's why Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, one of the first job that he had, it was in the trade, in the business. Besides Ar-Ra'i, which is shepherding, which is almost for everybody that is in that area will be in that. In that area, we have like markets, market of Uqad, and these are markets where it's like what you know today in our terms today is the free zone. Hong Kong and Dubai, and it's a free zone. It's a free zone that people bring all the merchandise and they're just free trade. Nobody does anything. And Mecca was the same. One of Suq Aqad, and it was that free zone. People come from south and Yemen and they bring certain merchandise and they bring it to the north, people coming from, and so on and so forth. That's a business mentality that they are. So tribe people and business people. No industries, nothing. So it's, all I know is the camel, the sheep, and my tribe. religion-wise, the Arab or that area was chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mecca was chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be the sacred place where Allah Azza wa Jal commanded Sayyidina Ibrahim and Sayyidina Ismail to build Al-Kaaba. And Sayyidina Ibrahim and Sayyidina Ismail, when the story is long with the Sayyidina Hajar and when he was left there as Sayyidina Ismail as a baby, and then Jurham after the demolition of the Sad Ma'rab. Sad Ma'rab is the dam of Ma'rab in Yemen, in south. And when that dam was demolished, people actually started traveling north, looking for a fertile land, looking for water. And one of the tribes that actually settled in Mecca is called Jurham. And they settled in Mecca, Jurham. And Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam, who was the son of Sayyidina Ibrahim, and he was not an Arab, he got married from Jurham, and he learned the language of the Arab, and he is the father of Al-Arab al-Musta'arab. He is the father of the Arabized Arabs. The deen that was in Mecca is a Tawheed, La ilaha illallah, is Deen Ibrahim alayhi salam. From the sending of Sayyidina Ibrahim and Sayyidina Ismail until something happened. Something happened that has to do with the customs that existed in the Arab mentality, which is one of the leaders, Amr ibn Amir Abu Khuza'ah. Amr ibn Amir was also in the trade, and he was traveling to Asham. Until this point, Mecca is on a Tawheed, Deen Ibrahim alayhi salam. Until this man traveled to Asham, and he saw people actually, they're using some statues, and they're using them as intermediary. They said, what do you do with this? He said, well, we just use it to worship, not worship God, but we use it to يُقَرِّبُنَا إِلَى اللَّهِ زُلْفَى. We're saying that we worship them, we take them as an intermediary between us and God. It's better. I guess they get bored just doing it the proper way. So they said, let's innovate something. And that's the innovation. That's the danger of innovation. When you start adding things to your religion, you will not know when it's going to end and where it's going to happen at the end. It started with just maybe you can say it's an innocent thought. So he saw people doing something, he said, let me take something. And he took one back with him, and he started actually, he is the leader of his tribe. When people saw, the member of tribe, man, our leader is doing something new, let's follow him. And then by the time Rasulullah came to it, there was 360 idols al Kaaba that was empty. But it started with one act of one individual. He brought it, and Arabs said, okay, well, our leader is doing it, that must be the right thing to do. Let's do it. And actually they started the business of gods. You know, the business of idols, statues. I mean, buying them from Yemen, this and that. And actually, and the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إِنَّ أَوَّلَ مَنْ سَيَّبَ السَّوَائِبِ وعبد الأصنام أبو خزاعة عمرو بن عامر وقد رأيته في النار يجر أمعاءه بها. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, the first to stand the practice of a sa'iba. A sa'iba is, at that time, the camel. Sa'iba means that their camel, if it's designated for one of the idols, don't touch her. Let her go. Let her just graze freely. Don't do anything with her. You cannot slaughter her, you cannot do anything to her. A sa'iba. He said he did it. This is Amr ibn Amr. Not only that, but also worshipping idols was by Abu Khuza'ah, Amr ibn Amr, and I saw him. Rasulullah is telling us what's his status, this guy, who brought this innovation to the Arabs of Islam. I saw him pulling his intestine behind him in the hellfire. So he's in, with the testimony of Rasulullah, he is in the hellfire. And then after that, as I mentioned, they started actually naming things. Al-Lat, Al-Uzza, Manat, and Allah Azza wa Jal talks about it. ما هي إلا أسماء إن هي إلا أسماء سميتموها أنتم وآباؤكم ما أنزل الله بها من سلطان. Allah Azza wa Jal, the Quran tells us that these are just names that you name, you and your fathers, starting from Amr ibn Amr al-Khuzai. And you took it as a religion, and Allah Azza wa Jal, one of the Sahaba, Abu Raja al-Utaridi, Abu Raja al-Utaridi thought in one of his, this is in the Bukhari, said, look at the mentality of the Arab when it comes to religion at that time. after this, they brought these idols to them. It said, كنا نعبد الحجر فإذا وجدنا حجرا هو أخير منه ألقيناه وأخذ الآخر. He said, we were worshipping stones, worshipping a stone. But if we found, I'm walking, I have a stone as my God, and then I'm walking, I see, Boulder is full of stones here. And I see a better stone, I'll just say, no, this is no good. I'll take this one. This is how they were. He said, وَأَلْقَيْنَاهُ. Not only that, but he said, once, sometimes you're in the desert, there's no rocks, there's no stones. What do? He said, actually, we'll put a mound of sand, and we will put some milk on it, and we'll make God from it. And that's, subhanAllah, and that started with one individual. I want you to pay attention to this. Started with one individual, with one action that was spread through the whole community, and did this in the whole community. And after that, khalas, after worshipping the stones, there is nothing left. With the few individuals, Zayd ibn Amr ibn Ubayd, Waraq ibn Nawfal, these are a few individuals who said they held on to Al-Hanafiyyah, Deen Ibrahim alayhi salam, and they kept it until actually some of them died before Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, most of them died before Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And this actually, the ignorance was spread out among the Arabs at the time, and not only the people of Mecca. Mecca was the center of Arab. So everyone who comes from Yemen or from south, north, they see something new, it's the fashion, let's take it. And it became the fashion of the Arab world at the time, and they became, like I mentioned. I don't think, because the next one, it's a little, the other one, it has to do with the society of the Arabs. And it's also very important. And I think we keep it till the next time, inshallah. What is the third one? Just kidding.
Only 2 hands. I can bring that over.
No, I'm just kidding.
Maybe 4.
Take it easy. Just kidding. I think we should, next time we'll talk about the society, and it's very important. Besides the tribal system, the society we will deal about the pride of the Arabs, we will deal with the women in the Arab society, we will deal with the children in the Arab society, and we will do the marriage in the Arab society at the time. A lot of points that existed at the time with the contract and with the war state in the Arab at that time. And we'll deal with also the literacy in the Arab. There are some good and bad stuff that the Arab had. It's not all bad. It's not all bad. I'm not supposed to somebody who doesn't like Arabs. Yeah, I told you. No, there are some good stuff. Actually, good stuff that they were chosen to be carrying the banner of La ilaha illallah to the rest of the world. But at the same time, actually, in both of them, in both the bad and the good quality, you will see why they were chosen to be in the good quality, because they kept the good qualities and carried the message. The bad quality, because they changed them. They were able to change them for bad to good and carry the message of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I think I'll give you about 5 minutes or so. If you have a comment, if you have a question, go ahead. Especially from the young brothers. Yes, and the sisters, yes.
So you mentioned that the Arabs were surrounded by the Roman and the Persian to some extent. Why wasn't there an interest among the Romans or the Persians to actually invade or occupy these lands as well? You mentioned that they
invaded for what?
Yeah, so there's nothing interesting.
I mean, it's a desert with a bunch of people and their tents on their camels and running around. With the exception of Mecca, and Mecca is the center of the Arabs. Mecca, Abraham al-Habashi tried to do something, and that's the result. So that was a message to the rest of the surrounding areas. But however, the Romans and the Persians didn't leave all the Arabs alone. They just left those who had nothing alone. But in Sham and in Iraq, and they were all under the occupation of the Persian or the Romans. So only the part that really has nothing in it except Mecca. Mecca is a sacred place. You cannot go near it. You cannot do anything to it. So because they've seen the lesson, the history told them about what happened to Abraham al-Habashi, and the rest is Masakin. If we need to talk about the Sahaba and how they're living, he was this man.
No petrol.
Good that Islam reached us. Huh?
There was no petrol at the time.
Petrol was. He said when the crisis started, he said if we have to go to the date in the water, we'll go to the date in the water. That's it. It was just recently in the 60s, not even then. Well, are you saying do you want to occupy now or what? Yes.
Yeah, what about Yemen? Was it independent?
Independent in
Oh.
which context?
What about Yemen? Was it, I mean, like, it wasn't deserted, I heard. I think they had some good land over there. Fruits and
Yemen?
vegetables, yes.
Yemen was,
Yes.
before the demolition of the Ma'arab, was one of the greatest area of the world. And there's a story about this in the Quran. If you read it, actually, the Yemenis did it to themselves. But this is not. But the point is, at the time of when we're talking about, Yemen is the same as the others. They were not an independent state. Actually, it was under the. We'll see it later on when Abraham al-Habashi, when he was coming to demolish the Kaaba, he was coming actually from Yemen, and he was he had like an intidad, mandate. He had like a mandate from the Persian Kisra for him to take over Yemen. There was a big struggle in Yemen. We'll talk about it down the road. It actually should be coming before the birth of